I don't see where this war is anything but a blip in a long range of misapplied policies going back to 1948 by the United States. And I'm wondering how this war has helped our national interest when it has, I think, only created more of the same type of problems that the U.S. has not wanted to face for the last mostly 40 years.
Namely?
The stability of the Middle East with the idea of not only the Palestinian homeland, but also trying to bring up the democracies in that country. It's ironic that most of the countries that we were aligned with were countries that, if they were actually democratically run, they would not probably have been behind us in the war.
Okay. Well, there are several purposes in the American national interest that we went into this endeavor. The first one is oil. Now everybody says, "Oh, oil, dirty, rotten oil," it means money. The fact is that oil is the fuel of the world. Like it or not, Zimbabwe runs on oil, as does Detroit, right? And he who controls the world's oil supply has a very great deal of power in this world, as well as a very great deal of money. And Saddam Hussein was threatening the world's access to oil at a reasonable price. I mean, would he have invaded Saudi Arabia if he'd been allowed to? Who knows? Maybe he just would have intimidated Saudi Arabia into doing whatever he wanted to, raising the price of oil at his wishes, paying him tribute, subjecting its foreign policy to his management, whatever. Any of those things is plausible and I think likely. So our major national interest was the security of the oil supply in the region. Secondly, there is an interest in having aggression not be rewarded. Now, people say, well, we don't, when there's an aggression, when the Turks invaded Cyprus, or when China, I don't ever hear anybody saying when China invaded Vietnam, as that example, somehow that gets lost. But in any event, when, we don't respond to every aggression in every case, that's true. But in this case, this was an especially naked aggression in an especially vulnerable and important place in the world, and so we did this in order to prevent further trouble later. If this man was working on nuclear weapons, as clearly he was, his power to intimidate people in his neighborhood would have been even greater. Now, in the aftermath of this, there has been a shakeup in the equation of all the people in the region. The Saudis, we've saved the Saudis, we've saved the Kuwaitis, we've saved the security in of the Gulf region. The Syrians, who are in the case of Hafez Assad as thuggish as Saddam Hussein ever was, is temporarily on our side, and we've got a chance. Now wait, just a second. I'm not pretending that Hafez Assad is a good guy. I'm saying that there is a possibility to get a kind of diplomacy going here that we haven't been able to in the past. People do get shook up as a result of wars. The Saudis are willing, they say they're willing at least, to talk about talking to Israel for the first time in history. The PLO is discredited for having sided with Saddam Hussein. Nobody likes the PLO. If we can get the Israelis to make a few gestures toward the Palestinians, we might get something started on the Arab-Israeli front. I don't know if that answers your question, but we can get to some more of it later.
Yeah, well, the reason why national interest is considered a politically correct thing for you to believe in by the government is that anything can be done in its name. And after all, it was in your national interest to reflag Kuwait's oil tankers as a means of helping Iraq win a war against Iran, which it had started by an act of aggression. And the same arguments used by Morton would perfectly fit without an adjustment as a matter of realpolitik. That policy too, and for all I know, did. I must say for him, though, that he's one of the few conservatives who was appalled by Saddam Hussein's regime before August of last year. But I think that if it had been put to him that, look, it's better than Iranian fundamentalism, it's a stabilizing force, because look at the map, Iraq's right in the middle, it has common borders, contrary to Charlton Heston, with the following, all of them very suggestive countries, if you count, from Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Syria, and so on, and Turkey, of course, and Iran. Right in the middle of the map is just where you don't want a vacuum, because you know what will happen. It might draw... These are the real politic reasons why the administration used to leave Saddam alone, and we're now seeing how persuasive, in realpolitik terms at least, those were. So I think we can simply say about national interest that it will suit any such interpretation, however cynical. What it will not do is the moral and ethical job that Morton, to his credit, wishes it would do. It won't help you in deciding about the matter of when an aggression is an aggression, I'm sorry to say. Realpolitik has another definition. Actually, there's a lot of needless confusion among leftists and liberals about this. Sometimes they say, oh, well, we didn't bleat about this or that invasion, or our authorities didn't, or aggression. So that's a double standard. I think that's not true. If you look at the other regional aggressions that have occurred, the Israeli occupation of the West Bank and Gaza, the Sharon invasion of Lebanon, the Syrian occupation of Lebanon, the Moroccan occupation of Western Sahara, the Turkish invasion of Cyprus, you will not find that the United States didn't oppose them. You'll find it supported them. That's not a double standard, that's a single standard. Excuse me. In other words, when is it an aggression, when is it not an aggression? When we decide. I repeat, this is to define imperialism. It's that simple. And
oh, come now. Look, the United States...
And only when you get that simple point can you get the complicated ones.
We did not support the Israeli occupation of the West Bank. We do not support it. Just a minute. Oh, come now. Seriously now. Seriously. I'm sure that I'm stealing somebody else's time, but we'll get to it later. Somebody else will ask it. Go ahead. Next question.
Mr. Hitchenson. I agree that it was an imperialist war in the Persian Gulf and it was not justified. My question to you is, where do you think the next justified war will take place? And if I could go right into my next question so you can think about them together. For Mr. Kondracke, I was curious by your use of the butcher justification in your argument, although I can, from your remarks already, I can kind of see where you're coming from now. Because I think that the butcher analogy requires a complete lack of knowledge and understanding about U.S. history from the takeover of the continent until more recently Grenada and Panama, not to mention the rest of Central and South America. And that actually a brief survey of history will show that the United States has been behind almost every single right-wing butchering dictatorship on the face of the planet. And so I find it astounding, actually, that you use the butcher analogy to condemn Saddam Hussein, when in fact I think that using this will show that my question is, how can you use a butcher justification to say Saddam Hussein is bad on the one hand, while at the same time completely ignoring the butchering of the United States?
Well, with respect, I think you thought of that question before I'd said what I just said, because I think that was a double standards question. And so I would rather take your question as a statement if you don't think that's unfair, and certainly I hope you don't think it condescending. The case of the next war will be determined in that manner. I think the next war will probably be one to redress the balance against Iranian fundamentalism and irredentism in the region, and I think that was why even before this war began there were voices raised in the Defense Department saying, let's not smash Iraq up too badly, we might need it again someday. Another definition, by the way, of colonial thinking, now being felt extremely painfully by those Iraqis who were naive enough to believe, with their mass of public opinion and lumpen academic and lumpen media America counterparts, that this war was being fought in the name of democracy and being fought to end wars rather than begin them. There are such things as justified wars, including involving crossing the territory of another country. I think myself that the Vietnamese intervention in Cambodia and Kampuchea can be justified. I think the Tanzanian crossing of the